Hi, I'm Paul Stringfellow, and welcome to this week's Tech Takeaways. As ever, joining me not actually on the couch, on the seat next to me is my erstwhile co-host, Jason Fitzgerald. Hi, Jace.
Hello.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah. I'm all right, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I wasn't convinced you was then for a minute. But
I am good.
excellent. We will be snipping that and using it as intro music in future. Welcome to Tech Takeaways. If it's the first time you've listened to the show, I mean, where the heck have you been? But we take top tech topics, which is easy for me to say, condense that into 15 minutes and give you some key takeaways that you can take away. That's not quite as subtle as and slick as Jason's cutting it into bite-sized morsels, but I thought I'd give something a go. If you caught our last episode, you'll recognise the guy sat to my right. We're joined again by Ed Blake from Absolute. Hi, Ed. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Hi, Ed.
Well, welcome back. Hope the journey home and back wasn't too bad between episodes.
It was easy.
Yeah.
The traffic was bad last week. It's fine this week.
Yeah.
I felt like I teleported.
Felt like you never actually left the sofa. I think people have cottoned on now that when we do this is all just...
No one knows.
Okay.
No.
So, Ed, last time you was with us, you talked a little bit about what Absolute do, but maybe for people who've not watching this in the wrong order and didn't watch last week's show first, tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do.
Yeah, so Ed Blake, I'm the Area Vice President for UK and Ireland for Absolute Security. We're a firmware-based security agent that sits on about 600 million devices globally. So we're quite unique in that as a company. There aren't any other companies out there that have actually that privilege of sitting there. And if you have a Windows laptop, then it's almost certain that you'll have Absolute Security's agent built into your firmware. So
even if you don't know that Ed is watching you, Ed is watching you. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
All right, just checking.
Ed has the capability to watch.
Yeah, if you
turn it on.
If you pay for the license.
I'm asleep until I'm switched on.
It's an opt-in. It's an opt-in.
Yeah, if you pay Ed the license, he will watch you. So, but we're not actually here to talk about that this week. What we want to do is revisit a popular topic. And I know it feels like we talk about this stuff all the time, but I think if you're looking back at some previous shows, we actually haven't done a ransomware episode for a little while. So what are we looking to touch on this week, Jace?
Well, ransomware's everywhere, isn't it? You know, I mean, this is the reason why we've done so many episodes on it is because it doesn't go away. You know, it's that thing that's always there. It keeps IT managers awake at night. It causes a lot of stress in people's lives. Ultimately, you know, ransomware is getting worse. You know, we're seeing not only it growing in size, we're seeing complexities in terms of kind of Teams launched attacks, SMS-based launch attacks, email is obviously still there. And so ransomware is still a problem today as it was, you know, the last time we did an episode on it. So I think it's important to keep talking about.
I agree. And we've got the perfect guest to do that with us. So Ed, you actually as a company, I was about to say you do, but I'm guessing as a company you do this. You do kind of like a cyber resilience index, I think you call it.
That's right.
And I think you touched on this in our last chat, which looks at kind of the state of cyber resilience, cyber preparedness. I think Jason in our last show called it that kind of secure by design approach. So, you know, we're recording this just off the back of a couple of major security conferences, RSA in the States, InfoSec Europe in London. And so it's probably a good time to just kind of take the pulse of where, you know, you as somebody who is working in a security and kind of device information vendor, talking to lots of customers. You know, where are you seeing kind of ransomware from an Absolute software kind of point of view? You know, where are you guys seeing it? What are you hearing from your customers? What are you seeing going on in general in the market?
Sure. So, losses from ransomware are obviously going through the roof, and I think. I saw a stat the other day that nearly $1 billion has been paid out now in payments to ransomware gangs in order to release their data. But what we're also seeing is we're seeing an increase in double and triple extortion attempts with ransomware. So, you know, people, if they start to resist the payment initially, things start to ramp up. There are escalations. Threats are starting to be made, not just in the digital world, but in the physical world as well. And that's obviously a worry for everybody. Again, you know, ransomware is number one on most people's risk register because it is so damaging. It's very visible. There's no hiding from it. And these gangs know that. So they're starting to look for other avenues to crank up the pressure on these organizations to pay up. So if you look at any typical ransomware scenario, one of the big problems is always going to be How did they get into my network, and what happened? And anything that you can do to give you an early indication that potentially you're about to be compromised will give you an advantage. Because a lot of people will say, actually, the first we knew about the being breached as a company was the ransomware actually suddenly activating on our endpoints. So that gang must have come in, they must have deactivated a number of security tools, and they must have been moving around that network looking for the right opportunity to actually deploy the ransomware. Now, one of the things they're going to do is they're going to disrupt your recovery. So they want to inhibit your recovery, they want to inhibit your backup, they want to look for ways to stop you recovering from that ransomware outbreak in the first place so that you're forced into a corner. Yeah. So again, it's a pressure situation. So anything you can do to build defense in depth and security by design into your infrastructure is going to help you become a much harder target to go after. So if you're using multi-factor authentication, you're not using default passwords. It all sounds like common sense. Yeah. And the NCSC have lots of guidebooks on what to do around security by design, and they're getting companies to sign up to actually go down this route. But implementation is critical, and ensuring that the things and measures that you put in place are actually working correctly.
So just as a question for that, because you talked about kind of security in depth, and we've touched on in a previous episode about kind of where your solutions kind of sit, but maybe steering away from your solutions a little bit. Where are this kind of secure by design, this kind of resiliency planning, resiliency preparation? Where are you seeing gaps? Based on kind of the insight that you guys have, the conversation you have with customers, the report that you did, where are customers maybe most uncomfortable or most likely to have gaps that present risk?
Yeah, so I think, again, it's back to the problem of software vulnerabilities. So if you've got people releasing products that they haven't, properly tested, and there are vulnerabilities being shipped out, and then you find multiple vulnerabilities in the same product. So you often see when these announcements come out, someone will suddenly say, we've got 30 or 40 vulnerabilities that we need to patch. And it's clear that the due diligence hasn't been done, or the analysis of that source code has not been performed correctly. So again, it's encouraging the developers when they write these products, and obviously they roll them out in these new internet-enabled technologies, and we're talking about pretty much everything now. Everything is being written to connect to the internet. Yeah. Lots of people talking about AI and deploying, basic machine learning and more advanced generative AI to a lot of these products. That arms race appears to be ramping up. But obviously, if you then go down the route of deploying a whole load of tools where you've got potential vulnerabilities, that becomes a huge weakness in your infrastructure. So, generative AI, we talked about this at InfoSec last week. We were debating AI and the security risks that poses to an organization. Now, you don't necessarily want everyone in your organization to have access to the entire company's data. So, what would stop someone? What would stop someone going off to their AI chatbot and saying, send me the CEO's pay, send me information about what the R&D department are doing. That could potentially then be taken and insider threat issues again. Someone could go and sell that. Again, if you've got awful data or poisonous data going into that AI model, your results are going to be terrible. You could potentially get an AI that could go completely rogue and start presenting, very misleading information.
Skynet. Yeah.
Well, I think we spoke about this actually. We did a lot of prep call, didn't we, ahead of recording this? And one of the things you talked about was this kind of growing threat of the attempt to poison potential data sets. So actually for doing that kind of thing, I think it's more true than ever is the garbage in, garbage out idea that actually if we can just, if we can feed garbage information into these learning models, then actually the stuff that you're relying on almost to inform your customers, make decisions is going to be equally bad.
AI is a tool. It is a tool. It's not good. It's not bad. AI is a tool. It depends on what happens with that tool. So if we look at it from a security protection perspective, we're looking at, okay, what is this AI doing? What's it analyzing? Is it identifying vulnerabilities in our network? Software that's not been patched, maybe, the patching process maybe isn't as robust in the organization as it should be, and it's detecting those kinds of things. Or maybe the infrastructure is so large that it's taking, thousands and thousands of event logs in per day, something that a human couldn't do, and working a way through that to say, actually, as an AI tool, I've just identified this event log. and then something else happening over here in the network and something else happening over here. And as a chorus, that looks to be this kind of attack. And that's going to flag it to you. Yeah. But the issue with that is then if over time that becomes skewed, so what is normal becomes slightly abnormal, the results become completely different. And it becomes the difference between IT admins or security professionals getting accurate, relevant information and just being bombarded with stuff that's not true. And that's kind of the issue that we've got. It's that notification fatigue. Why haven't the team acted on this? Well, because there's 40,000 notifications today and there was 80,000 yesterday.
Yeah.
It's about how do you effectively manage that?
No, you're spot on. I mean, if you talk to some of the really big networks, their SIMs are getting billions of alerts a week.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's unmanageable. You can't get through billions of alerts a week with, a team of people in an operations center. So you have to start to figure out how you deal with these, what we used to call high frequency, low impact events. So you want to filter out as much noise as possible for things that look like, okay, that's just someone scanning our network. It may not be anything malicious. It may be some random person or a tool set that's being utilized. What we really want to do is start to piece together the areas of information that look like they're building up to a compromise or a cyber attack. And that could be, a very low and slow approach to a cyber attack on your network. So once you've got kind of filtered out that noise, you can start to use things like network detection and response tools and others sat on the network, weeding out and looking for, those needles in the haystack, which might potentially indicate you've got a very serious problem. Rather than get worked up about every single alert you get and then find that after you spent an hour investigating as an analyst is absolutely nothing or a false positive in the first place.
So just out of interest, in terms of from your experience and what you're seeing in the market, is there any top tips that you could give people about, how to prepare for kind of modern ransomware attacks? Because you're absolutely right in what you said at the beginning, in that, this is a space that continues to evolve. The ransomware attack, as Jay said in his intro, actually, that the ransomware attack is not just something that doesn't change and is just the same as it was and now we've solved it. It's the reason we haven't solved it continues to evolve. So, so for people watching this who are considering, how's a ransomware challenge evolving? What do I need to make sure I'm doing? Have you got any tips there in terms of things that they really should be doing and focusing on? Yeah,
so look, first of all, where you could be impacted. So if your business is healthcare, for instance, you need to start to look at your IoT devices potentially. They might be your vulnerable Achilles heel. Again, if you're in the hotel business, we've heard about situations where everyone in the hotel's been locked in their room for a ransomware attack and then refused to be released. Now, there might be an emergency.
Sounds like you've stayed in some of the hotels I have, refused to be released.
Oh, no, they're quite happy to get rid of me as soon as possible. So, that might be a problem. So again, if all your guests are suddenly locked in a room, very visible. But again, your weakness might be your key card system. So looking at potentially where your highest risk issue is going to be in the first place, and then war gaming the situation as well. So what do we do if that happens? And looking at those scenarios. Now, there's a lot of useful information out there. So ISACA, the ISF, are all producing guides and worktop, type exercises to work with various people in compliance and cybersecurity to actually walk through these scenarios and figure out a response, that's measured and is compliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think companies spend enough time doing those types of exercises. We've spoken about this before. I think
when's not the best time to do this, Jace? When's not the best time to do this exercise?
The ideal time is not when you've got an exercise, when you've got an active incident. You need an incident response plan before you have an incident. In the same way that you need a disaster recovery plan before you have a disaster. It's exactly the same as that. But I think the focus is very much on how do we keep people out? This is our perimeter. You don't come in. How do we keep them out? Kind of thing. And when people do breach that perimeter, first of all, it's a shock. The IT people are, can get quite stressed out about it, and and they end up working weekends and evenings trying to recover it. But because there's no plan in place, none of the real questions are being answered. When are we going to be back operational? What systems are impacted? The answers to those generally are, I don't know. I don't know when we're going to be back online because we don't have a plan. people should absolutely invest in, writing a disaster recovery plan that includes cyber, and ransomware, before it becomes a disaster for them.
Well, and I think as you touched on as well, Ed, it's that idea of actually where's the security perimeter gone? And the security perimeter is absolutely on the endpoints, whether that's laptops and desktops, mobile devices. This is where the risk lies. So the more information you can find out, the better understanding you've got of where risk lies in there, then the better chance you have of protecting your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to Ed's point earlier about the way that an attack starts on the endpoint, it generally is with defense evasion. So what we're going to first of all turn off some security software and then launch an attack from there. Okay, well, if we can get visibility as to that happening as soon as it happens, you stand a better chance of doing anything about it.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point, and it feels like a good place to wrap up. But before we go, Ed, just if people want to find out, well, maybe a couple of things actually. If they want to find out more about you or get in touch with you, how can they do that? How can they find out more about Absolute? And we mentioned this kind of cyber resiliency index report. Is there a way people can get hold of that as well?
Yeah, so we're on absolute.com. That's our main website, and you can go on there and you can download the Cyber Resilience Risk Index report for 2024. We've got a bunch of white papers and other information on there, but certainly the index right now is actually just been started to be available on the website. So if you go on there, register, you can download the report, have a good read of it. And there are some key insights there, particularly around some of the findings we found from doing this sanitized reporting.
And don't forget, Ed can be watching you, so he'll know whether you've downloaded the report or not. So just so you know. Well, look, Jace, thanks as always. And Ed, thanks for joining us this week and in our previous episode as well. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us. So Ed, thanks for joining us. And for everybody else, hope you've enjoyed the show. I think Ed and Jason actually both shared some really useful insight. And don't forget, these ransomware problems are not going away. It's a continued problem. It continued to evolve. We need to make sure that the tools we have in place continue to evolve to meet that threat. So to make sure you catch all of our future tech takeaways, do subscribe. You can subscribe here on YouTube or in all good homes of podcasts, and possibly some bad ones. I haven't said that for a few episodes, so I thought I'd throw that old gag in just one more time. So anyway, until next time, me, Jason and Ed are going to play Pac-Man. But until next time, we'll see you soon on another Tech Takeaways.